won't take too long. I've got a lot of slides to get through because I was a bit mad with the PowerPoint. This is the first time I've done a panel. Yeah. I will be summarising what's on the panel. If any slides, and putting them up somewhere online, which I'll link to in the forums afterwards. So if I feel like I'm going through it quicker than it is on it, I wouldn't want to just read out what's on the screen. I'll tell you what's on there. I'll summarise what's on there. But I once had I was at like a work-related union thing actually, and I had this woman in me. So this is how the Scottish TUC works, and how I'm involved, and this is why we elect 3 disabled, because they're dyslexic, so I'm in the disabled members committee. This is how we always make sure we elect 6 disabled people to them, and I'm one of those. In fact, I'm the most important, more or less. I'm like, ugh, this is A, ego trip, and B, the most boring ego trip. She just read out, it was an awful PowerPoint as well. It was in like, I've had to change this up to my original plan so it's more readable. With like a blue background in the boxes, but she had like some awful like red-green conglomeration as well. You couldn't really read anything. You were like, it's like
that's pretty. You can't line just going, why is it all fucking grey?
Yeah, exactly. Especially bad at like a disabled member's like.
Actually, it's true. Colourblind is usually like red and green.
There's red, green, and there's like blue, yellow.
Yeah. It's usually those two they can't see. This is like that doesn't sound insane.
Yeah, I once dated a guy who went to the park with some friends, and friends were like throwing the ball around for the dog, and like, oh, can you go get the ball? And it was like, oh, it's a red ball on green grass, isn't it? And like, yes, he actually said everything looks brown rather than green. It's like brown. It's a sea of brown. I can't see anything.
I have a feeling that she was probably putting the same sort of competition like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh god. But I can't wait 20 minutes. I'm in Barnes, which is...
It is recording.
It is recording. Oh, right. Well,
it's just going to cut out at some point.
Oh, right, okay, right. I didn't realise.
You've just been pitching that.
I know, I'm not bit. I'm just saying, right, okay, so... My badge name is Silicaria, and as you might be able to tell from the sailor, I like magical girls. Also like 40k, hence the Cardi, which is like the most dissonant thing ever. Magical death to all Xenos.
Basically, magical.
Yeah. So, this is my panel, a history of magical girl anime, or sparkles without Cullens, because you do not need to be controlled by a manipulative arse of a vampire boyfriend who sparkles to have sparkles. You can have like more awesome sparkles that means you're killing things, like vampires. Right. I've got the panel outline here, blah blah blah, boring. I'm going to go over the things and the archetypes of different types of magical girl anime, and I'm going over the history of that and timeline of not every example because we'd be here forever, but some of the examples of what I call core shows. This is just personal preference, but I typically call like the core magical girl anime as being ones that were aimed at young girls. Doesn't stop me from getting quite thinky of this. Japan's just like that with its children's entertainment. It doesn't treat them like maroons like I was used to, but it's getting better with stuff like Avatar and things now. And parodies and outside examples where it shall touch on things like Nanoha and stuff that was actually aimed at a different audience. So, there is one exception in the core timeline, but that's just because she's so important to the sort of development of the magical girl genre. Right. Themes and archetypes. Right. Magical girls are a genre of anime which feature young girls and teenage women either having granted magnificent powers. I'm going to try not just read this. They either get powers, or they already are witches, or they tend to, very much at first, they sort of were escapist in nature. They strongly focused on wish fulfillment, and all the later ones all sort of got into more delving into the thinky part of things, like, I'll talk more on this in a moment, but like sort of the subject of identity, like discovery of puberty, even though the first ones really were like allegories for puberty in a way. And also later on deconstructions and examples aimed at adults, did like more action-based shows and things. And I'm going to go into the subtypes of magical girls now. You've got your cute witches, and your shape-shifting magical girls, and your magical warriors. And I'll just hop over here and go to the next slide. Your cute witches or Majoko. These are shows like, I've got them listed here, but Mahotsuka Sally and Oja Majo Dorami. I've got a fuller list there, but basically it's about witches. You tend to have either a little girl comes down from a magical land and she helps people out on Earth for whatever reason. Or you occasionally, like in Oja Majo Dorami, you get the girl isn't magical yet and she's granted the ability to potentially become a witch. In most cases they actually are from a different world or a different planet or a different dimension. This was the first example of magical girls, well, almost, was one of these. There's two first examples, and I'll get on to that in a moment. That's still from Oja Majo Dorami. I just thought it shows you what I mean by a cute witch, quite literally. They don't always dress as witches, and most of the time they don't, but Oja Majo Dorami took that concept and ran with it. Really did.
Well, it's in Japanese, Majo does basically mean witch. So it's a double pun. Ojama basically means like a
bothersome
nuisance.
Yes, it's like bothersome witch. These otherworldly travellers sometimes fall into, are often princesses, just because they're like princesses. Or sometimes they're like compatriots to princesses as well. There's a lot of cases where they basically have to prove their worth before they can become queen, often by collecting random doodads or doohickeys. Or sometimes they don't need to prove their worth to become queen, it's got some other plot point, but for example, those there are the Holy Stones from Ultramaniac. Now, this plotline was completely added into it for the anime. Ultramaniac was a series by what is her name? The manga. Excuse me, but she wrote Marmalade Girl, I think.
Oh.
She wrote, but basically the idea of the Ultramaniac series and why I really like it, I've read the manga, is that there's this magical girl who comes from the magical land, sort of plot element to it, but she's not actually the only main character. One of the other main characters is like her best friend, who's like just normal human, which is a very common thing, but usually like the best friends who are normal humans just get shoved off to the side. Whereas in Ultramaniac, Ayu basically just gets a lot of crap done to her, and she's like, what is this? For example, at one point she says, right, I've got to fight the boys in this tennis match, and we're fighting over the tennis courts, so I could do with being stronger. And Nina Sakurada, who's the protagonist of that magic protagonist of that series, is useless at magic. So she turns her into a guy, and she but she tries to pass herself off as her own cousin, but yeah, she's got more upper body arm strength, but she's also shit because she's not used to being taller or having more like strength in her arms. She's like just completely missing all the time. So yeah, she just turns her into somebody who had half a chance to somebody who has no chance.
Now her cousin, are we talking actual cousins or Sailor Moon cousins?
No, she just tries to, the girl who gets turned into a boy bravely pass herself off as her own cousin. the end of that episode wraps up with, obviously she changes back off script. It's like, right, okay, I need the loo. And she's like, oh, well, why don't you just go and like, no, I need to go with some girls. Like, oh, I never actually looked at the spell on how to turn you back. Right. This is the type of magical girl who has a tendency to turn into an older version of herself, or she can shift into somebody else, and she can simulate their skills, or she can use looking like somebody else to like creep into somewhere. I've got a lot of examples of how this is a side, how this is a core pop. There's one or two that have it as a side power. Cutie Honey has it because she basically, her power is the creation of matter from thin air, so she can look whatever she wants to look like. Then it also shows up in Sailor Moon, hence Sailor Venus is rather crappy attempt at trying to look like Sailor Moon. Should have worked perfectly really with the magical power, but they just went with the lols and gave her like awful hair. She looked more like Chibiusa, to be honest.
No, Sailor Moon actually did have that sort of power.
Yeah, she did. She had the pen where she was quite impressive. That's what the Sailor Venus is supposed to have used in that scene, so I'm still baffled as to why it doesn't work properly.
Her hair's not long enough.
The Iris Singers. These are a subtype of the shape-shifting turns older, usually anyway, example, where basically this was really quite wish fulfillment based. As in all, but these ones really were like, I'm going to become older. What should I do when I'm older? I'm going to wander around the street for like 5 minutes, and then a random guy comes up to me and says, you look like you would be being an idol singer. Let me sign you to my talent agency.
Is that how they do it?
It's like, right. This would be, in the 80s, this when it really kicked off, and Studio Piero, who I'll get on to in a minute, made like a slew of them. I'm cosplaying one of them. There's examples where they actually later blended this with the magical warrior thing, because Mermaid Melody, Pitch. They are magical girl Sailor Moon types who then sing, and they're also mermaids. Also, oddly similar Western example, probably not directly influenced, Gem and the Holograms. Oh, yes.
Feel like I'm not.
No, I won't sing it. Magical Warriors. There's a still from Pretty Cure there, where basically they're in an annihilated city. Pretty Cure is this most useful side powers that when they leave the area, the monster's just trashed. For some reason, the buildings all magically fix themselves. It's like, nobody actually ever references it though, so it's just like this sort of spy side power that just happens.
It's like this lovely image now of somebody like a salary man just going, well, my buildings were destroyed, no work for me. Ow!
Or a lot of out-of-work construction workers going, oh. Right. These are probably the most famous ones to us in the West, particularly in the English-speaking West. They basically are magically powered superheroines. They fight grand evils. They have a tendency to fight either female-only bad guys. I don't mean the higher ones, but they tend to fight like your monsters of the week tend to be like women versions of some strange woman. I used to be a cat puzzle, and now I'm a cat girl.
That was something to do with womenly stuff. So.
Yeah, that actually really started with Cutie Honey, but Sailor Moon almost is a nod to Cutie Honey and the animation stuff for the first part of the series up until they started turning random people into the bad guys, and then you've got men. They were all female. this probably first appeared in non-shoujo works with Cutie Honey in 1973, and that's my exception to the core rule. But we've also got Western examples that are, some of the later ones are definitely direct, like Witch or WITCH and Winx Club, which are both Italian in origin. Although not sure whether Princess and the Star and the Jewel Riders might have been directly influenced. So She-Ra just came, it was just He-Man but for girls. But she is very much like a magical girl. She has the transformation and everything.
The same as He-Man has its own.
Basically though, yeah, he's like a magical girl, only he's a bloke.
All I have now is just this image of him.
I have the power! Right. No, they are, like I said, while at first a lot of these were like just pretty enjoyable, but definitely like series saying, oh, let's have some fun with having magic. A lot of them still had quite like depressing endings because it's Japan. But they're still quite like definitely just for little girls, and they didn't really get into the like the deeper connotation side. Later on, you got things that even, to be fair, even like stuff aimed at children in Japan has a tendency to get into like touches on identity. Like, for example, I think I've got a good picture of Usagi and Senbon. Usagi goes through like, at least lightly goes through a bit of a conflicted personality in the second season where she's like doesn't want to be Sailor Moon, so her powers don't work properly, and it isn't until she becomes committed to the cause that she's able to use them. The 70s was more Tezuka's example that took this is a metaphor for puberty, and really went with it. It explicitly said, yes, this is supposed to be a show for sex education for girls.
Tezuka doing something pushing the boundaries? Never.
Yeah, plus he's a doctor. Mind you, I've got it to one point where I think he just skipped over the biology for rule of cool, but he used to do that in blackjack all the time anyway. So. You know, like, and you've got like things that touch on the importance of friendship. That's always been there. I've got pretty cure for that, picture for that, though most fans would agree they go about touching on friendship to an extent where it doesn't come across as just friendship. Never explicitly said in Pretty Cure, but it's very strongly hinted at, despite them both having like male love interests who are really boring. Well,
that's why.
Pure White, Honoka's like love interest is at least a little bit interesting because he's a villain, but kind of like blah. It's just more interesting to watch them interact between the two girls because they're just better written characters than the other couples. Right. The whole genre really kicked off in the 1960s with two shows. Himitsu no Ako-chan, or The Secrets of Ako-chan, or Ako-chan's Secrets, or whatever, and Mako Tsuzukai Sally. Now, Ako-chan was the first manga example, whereas Sally was actually animated first, even though her manga debuted later. So, depends on how you categorize it, how would you say which one's the first one.
Sorry, one question. The top picture, that's Himitsu no Ako-chan, is it?
Yes, that's Himitsu no Ako-chan.
Is this the one where she has like a little compact mirror or something?
Yes, this is this is the first sort of introduction of the compact mirror transformation.
Yeah, that actually, weirdly enough, that actually gets referenced in DBZ. it's basically, it's around the sort of March of Blue where they've got this whole like theme of magic little things. So we have like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, Abracadabra, and the henchman, there's Pui Pui who, sorry I'm something.
It's alright, I'm leaving a drink of tea.
There's Pui Pui who, that's basically like based on a sort of spell, so like, it's kind of on the lines of like kiss and make it better, sort of like Pui pain go away. The second henchman, Yakon, actually comes from Himitsu no Ako-chan, the catchphrase she uses for it. I can't remember the exact one, but it basically comes out as something like by magical compact or something, like my Yakon. Sorry,
That's alright, I'm just gonna... Now, both the creators there were influenced by one particular thing, and that one particular thing is up there, which is a Western show called Bewitched. Bewitched ran in the 1960s in America, and then was adapted and was massively popular in Japan, particularly with little girls. And both of them realised this and thought, right, let's do a series that's like that, but actually for little girls. Like, even though Bewitched is like very innocent, it's not got anything objectionable in it, unless you're a conservative American who doesn't like witches. And it's just that it was like this sort of adult-focused humour in the more lighter sense of it's like about being a married couple and stuff. This both inspirations came out differently. With Midsummer Night's Dream, it's much lighter touch, it's much more explicit with Maho Tsuku's Sally, because she was the first real cute witch that was literally a witch, whereas Ako-chan is empowered by a magical spirit. She gets the trinket from elsewhere. I'm going to very quickly go over Bewitched. Basically, Darren doesn't want Samantha to be a witch anymore because he's I like him, but he's an example of like America not getting more, at the time, not understanding the idea of a woman being more powerful than the man in the relationship, and she has magical powers. And Dora, her mother-in-law, hates him, so frequently turns up and turns him into crap, or de-ages him, or makes it so he can't lie, or makes it so he's got total recall memory and is just spouting out crap. And yeah, I've got the first few seasons of Bewitched myself because I love it, but it does get very formulaic after a while. It was called Okusama wa Majoko in Japan, which means my wife is a witch. Kind of direct description of the series, the way the Japanese tend to go for. There was later an example of a magical girl show sort of deconstruction aimed at all the audiences that was named for it. It was called Okusama wa Majo Shoujo, Bewitched Agnes. And that's Agnes. And she was called Agnes because Agnes Moorehead was Endora's actress. So a lot of nods in there. Mitch no Ako-chan showed up about 4 times. First in 1969, then 1988, then 1998, and in this September there's a live action version coming out. Again, focusing on a teenage character, or actually I think she's a salary woman, rather than a little girl. But basically, little girl, one day she smashes a mirror that's really important to her and feels really bad about it, so she goes and uses a ceremonial burial, and she gets approached by a magical being from the land of mirrors, or the kingdom of mirrors, who gives her a magical wand to replace it that can turn her into anything she wants. I mean, at one point she's turns herself into a fountain. Right? And it's a male cherub fountain as well, so she's embarrassed. Like one of those ones with peas.
Oh.
Mahokuzukai Sally. I do apologise if I'm going too fast, I'm just trying to get through these in the time frame we've got. Mahokuzukai Sally, or Sally the Witch, made by Mitsuteru Yokohama, who made Tetsujin 28. So you keep bumping into, especially in the early years, guys who made epic impacts on the mecha genre and epic impacts on the magical girl genre. It's just oh, well there you go. Very direct influence by Bewitched, as you can even see in the sort of opening animation. It looks like the opening animation of Bewitched. Basically, originally called Sunny in the manga, she is the first example of a princess of a magical kingdom coming down to Earth to help people out. She doesn't have any particular quest other than make people happy, because she just sort of decides to do it herself. She doesn't necessarily explicitly get sent down until the later 1989 series when she is actually sort of sent on a quest. But the first time it was just, oh, I fancy going to Earth, so let's go to Earth. These two series both, as I said, introduced the things like the witch world concept, where there's a witch when the world comes, and also the magical transformations, and they were both aimed at the 10 to 12-year-old mark, or maybe 8 or even 4 to 12-year-old mark audience, and therefore featured girls in that sort of field themselves. There were other examples in the 60s, but those are the main two that you can look back on as being like the genre makers. Now, when we got into the 1970s, things started to get a little bit darker, also a little bit more. We started to introduce things like fan service. And the first examples that were actually aimed at audiences other than magical girls, and rivals, like the Magical Witch Rival first came in a series which I'll get on to in a moment. Right. One of the more important ones is, as I said, Osamu Tezuka's God of Manga's example, which is really weird. It's like, basically, Melmo is the eldest of 3 children. She's got 2 little brothers, but she's only 9 years old, and her mother dies in a car crash. And her mum is in heaven, and she's like, "Oh, I want my little children to be safe, so I wish they could grow up a little faster, so not to be like endangered in this world, so cruel to orphans." So she comes as a ghost to her eldest child with like a bottle of sweets, red sweets and blue sweets, and the red ones can turn her, no, the blue ones can turn her into an adult, and the red ones can turn her back into herself. But she can also take the red ones to turn into a baby. I don't know how useful that actually is in terms of things and trying to help your younger siblings grow up. I can be a baby. Oh, and this is where it gets really weird, and Tezuka's skimping on science, or possibly just the 70s not understanding science. If she takes 2 candies at once, she regresses to a fetus and then can choose to become any animal, because the logic was at fetal stage you have the potential to become any animal.
Okay.
But the magic thing with this is it's not her that's magical, it's the candies. She's the one that has them. So she just she can use them on anybody else. She gets attacked by like these like growling meat like Rottweiler dog things at one point, and she just chucks like the candies at them, and they turn into puppies, and they're like, what? This was intended as sex education, and it touched upon issues such as puberty and childcare, and she, at one point, she's torn by whether, when she turns into a 19-year-old self, whether she should breastfeed her baby brother, which is a bit. I want to bring up the fact that she wouldn't be lactating if she hadn't been pregnant recently. But unless the candies just do that as well. If you're lactating.
Otherwise, we're getting into some weird incest shit.
Well, it was also one of the first shows she would make wide use of panty shots, because she, unlike other Gets all the magical girls who get the nice new outfit for being on it, she doesn't. She's stuck in the same outfit she's wearing, so it just stretches. She must wear lycra all the time. But her skirt goes from being quite normal, even quite a mini skirt on a girl, to being like massively short. Reportedly,
we know it actually stops just by the picture.
Yeah. Reportedly, Japanese parents hated this series. That's why it only lasted 26 episodes, because it was such an uproar. Because it kept bringing up questions they really weren't comfortable with answering. Just Tezuka, but there you go. Ah, cutie honey, the big exception to the aimed at girls in the college, but there was a later series that was definitely aimed at young girls. Basically, created by, as I put there, creative powerhouse one a guy, because he just made crap loads of stuff. Absolutely. He also made another Magical Girl series, which I haven't put in here, called Magical Tickle, which falls into the Witch from Another Series thing. The anime was intended for male audiences, mainly because they were developing it as a girl series originally, but another Magical Girl series about the cyborg did terrible in its slot, in its time slot that was going to go into. So they booted it out of that time slot and put it in the boys' action time slot. So they thought they'd really run with it by introducing the first naked transformation sequences. As like sort of, not that you really see anything in the original, like Barbie doll, and she was very highly influenced by the Sentai shows of the era. She was like Rainbow Man and other shows where they had multiple forms and they would transform and give epic speeches. Sometimes, and with the cuteness, sometimes I'm Hurricane Honey, the motorcyclist. Sometimes I'm the stewardess, but my true form is the soldier of love and justice, Cutie Honey. And like, as you can probably tell, that one with the incredibly large bosoms was from an adult targeted version, which is not really hentai so much as just very heavy, edgy. Very heavy, etchy with bosoms and things, and so she does transform like naked, or at least you can see her nipples in that version. We've got a couple of live action versions. The live action movie, which is the easiest thing to acquire over here if you're interested, which is very campy and silly and a lot of fun. Cutie Honey the Live, which I've seen bits of, and it is very campy as well. But from what I've told, because I've only seen scenes where it is campy, but apparently it's mood whiplashes all over the place, and it goes into like we're going to go with serious scene now, and then go to stupid scene later. Oh, it's not stupid, but you know, like silly. Meg-chan or Megu-chan, animated by a lot of the same staff as the Cutie Honey, hence why, even though this one was aimed at girls, it had some weird stuff in it. Again, she comes from a magical world, but she's the first example of where she actually has to compete with somebody to become the queen, so it was the first rival. And all the other magical girls shows, bar Cutie Honey, which was aimed at boys beforehand, had like been quite light, like we just do things for the pleasure of them, or do things because it's important and you need to do them. But you don't really have any massive threats. This is none. None is the first magical girl rival, and in the first episode, she tries to kill Meg. Straight up kill her. They later become friends. Well, at least honourable rivals anyway. And because it was staffed by the same people who made Cutie Honey, it had a lot of Cutie Honey's sensibilities in it. For example, there's a guy sent from the magical land to sabotage her chances of becoming queen. And he's just a straight perv who wants to like take photographs of her naked, and at one point sends her bath away on a magical. I think it's him, but somehow she gets sent away on a magical career throughout the town in a bath, and she's like in a bubble bath and like oh. Oh.
She's 15 years old, aren't
you? Yeah.
You have a scene over there.
Yeah, exactly. It's just. It's 1980s. This is when things went mad with the magical girls in terms of getting older and singing and having the ability to get signed for talent agencies, often lickety split for some reason. Or at least in Creamy Mary. Other ones didn't necessarily all become idol singers, but they all had something going on. He also had the first example of a sort of Sailor Moon style team up, only in like one OVA. There was a couple of team-ups, but there's only one where they really team up and fight something. I watched it the other night on YouTube. I watched bits of it with no subtitles, so that was fun to follow. And it's just strange.
It's always strange when you're watching about sex.
I mean, I really love Magical Girl series, but this was like, trying to follow along, it was like, what? Right. Minky Momo, very important series in Japan. Not really made an impact over here, but massively popular in the rest of Europe, in like Spain and Italy. You find a lot of these in the 1960s ones, and even some of the 1970s. And so the 1980s and the 1970s ones were popular in Europe before we even really got the genre over here. Momo was the princess of, I can't even pronounce Farinara, I think, but this is a magical land. Farinara. But goodness knows how it's pronounced it.
I take the Chinese lesson.
Yeah. Yes, she's from, it's the land of fairy tales, and it exists in the sky. And fairy tale characters are starting to disappear. So her parents send her down to Earth with the impetus of like bringing joy to individual people's lives, which will fix this because it will reinvigorate the magical jewels in the crown in Farinasa. Important because it was fairly innocent series, but even then there was she did actually have a lot of actiony stuff going on, even though she was never intended as an actiony magical girl. And it was massively popular, particularly with an older demographic. This was one of the first ones where, I suppose arguably the first example of moe, really, where all the audiences latched onto her because she was just so cute and adorable and endearing. And that's why she has quite a lot of OVAs, and had a later series, example, which I mentioned up there, where a different Momo, who looks the same as her, comes up from the sea to do the same thing. And at first you think it's a reinterpretation series, but then they meet each other. And to explain how they meet would involve me massively spoiling the first season, but it's one of those things that Minky Momo was really well known for. So does anybody mind? Anybody mind? Anybody particularly get? Yeah. In the 49th episode, I think it is, or the 48th, she loses her ability to use magic. Now, you think, oh, that'll just be a little stumbling block and she'll get over it eventually. No, in the next episode she gets hit by a toy truck and dies. And basically, she then gets her parents offered to reincarnate her, and she chooses to be reincarnated as a normal little girl on Earth without any magical powers, because she had so come to care for her parents on Earth who'd been hypnotized into thinking they were her parents, who were childless. So she gets reborn as that couple's little girl, just human little girl, and that's how they wind up meeting later on, because by the time it rolled around, it was about 1991, and it first aired in 1982. She would be about old enough to have just grown up to be the same, look exactly the same, but they also had 3 magical pets, each of them, and yeah, the latest series gets really bad with the magical truck thing. Several times the second Momo is threatened with being hit by trucks. It just gets a bit ridiculous. It's she actually's fine, the second Momo, but they're like, and we're going to hit you with a truck. Oh. People are starting to go, now you're really just hitting the piece.
Who the hell actually drives that truck?
You know, she got hit by a toy truck. The reason why it ended up being shorter and why they massively rewrote the end and probably included the death was because the toy company that was financing it pulled all their money ties off. Studio Piero. Studio Piero was actually, I should have mentioned, Mickey Moore was the first example of a magical girl who hadn't been animated by Toei in some way. Studio Piero was a different studio to Mickey Moore yet again, and they went bananas over the course of the latter half of the 80s and just started churning out loads and loads and loads of examples of magical girls. And they're almost all, bar one, an example of magical girls who turn into older versions of themselves. There's Creamy Mammy, who I've described. She basically she helps an alien to do something. I think she helps him find his way home. So he gives her the power to become a 16-year-old version of herself for a year. Not just permanently. Now you're 16 for a year. Your parents are going to just wonder where the hell you've gone. Like back and forth. Persia, magical fairy Persia. They were all called Maho no, like magical something. Magical fairy Persia. I have to give Persia some dues in terms of, like, rather than going with little average girl in Japan or magical traveler from another kingdom, she was like some wild child that ran around the Serengeti with like lions and shit. And then some Japanese benefactors came to get her and take her back to Japan so she could live a normal life, despite the fact that there was no degree of normalcy for her, because she's used to running around in Africa, not like, you know, going to school and things. But on the way to Japan, she falls asleep and is approached. She finds herself in this magical kingdom. In fact, I'm not entirely certain she falls asleep, but she finds herself in this magical kingdom called Lovely Dream. So good, Lovely Dream, which is in peril, a bit like Mickey Momo before her, and she's given the power to turn into an older version of herself, sort of Mickey Momo, Cutie Honey style. She can have any profession, and she's trying to reconnect she's trying to collect the love energy to send back to Lovely Dream to like fix it. Maho no Star Magical Emmy, which is I'm cosplaying, albeit not quite accurately. I've got my gloves over here, and she does have a hat, but she's not going to do that same. I haven't got the cravat because I've run out of time. Mai Kazuki really wants to perform in her older, like her grandparents' magical sort of stage musician troupe, not real magic, it's just, you know, really impressive stage theatrics. But she isn't quite good enough to do it yet. She keeps ballsing up on the tricks and it isn't quite that impressive. So one day she's approached by a mirror sprite who says he'll give her the power to become older and also actually have real life magic. She uses this ability to save Magic Carrot's reputation when something almost goes wrong during a show, and she becomes a star attraction. She does actually sort of fit the magical idol singer genre without actually being an idol singer per se, because one of the reasons she gets so popular is later on she starts to incorporate music into her acts as well, and she does sort of sing as she's doing things. As I said before, almost all of these examples lose their powers. She actually elects to give hers up because she basically feels guilty that she's cheating. You know. Pastel Yumi. Pastel Yumi, she's a budding artist who gets given the ability to bring anything she draws to life with a magical enchantment. First example, it's a Studio Piero girl that doesn't transform into an older girl. She actually has an interesting thing in that she didn't have the best home life. Her parents are always arguing and almost split up at one point, and her mother's an alcoholic. So, yeah, so that was, it was shown that even though these were very formulaic and really quite marketed shows. It was the 80s, and everybody had big hair, and everything was a toy advert.
I noticed you looked at me when you said that.
That was my mental image of Mr. Satan or Kill. Just
Probably made for children.
well, I've just got the mental image of him selling like 80s shampoo. Man shampoo.
Okay, I have a new skit to do with you.
The Studio Hero Girls had several crossovers, well, two really. They had one where the first three girls, because it came out in 1986, just before Magical Uni was kicking off, I was stuck in their older forms and have to try and reverse it, and then like they have to find this hot spring and jump into it and guess which random nonsense riddle is going to turn them back. It was never. It was always intended to be very silly, like ludicrously silly. And then Witch Girl Club Quartet, Alien X from the Air Zone, in which it actually starts off with like just the film directors like saying, "Get your asses in gear, we're going to film this," and then it cuts to like there's a tentacle monster on the loose. Yeah, no, honestly, there's a tentacle monster on the loose, and it's going around and it's attacking young women, and only young women, like in their teens, and like turning them in, and then drawing out their life energy and turning them into old ladies. The Japanese government, in an act of desperation, like basically kidnaps all of the Studio Pierrot magical girls. No, honestly, it gets some really elaborate traps at first. It's like I think it's Creamy Mammy just is wandering along in the park and she sits down on a bench to eat like a snack with her like friend, who or was it Emmy? I don't know, but who basically, and this big like thing just basically chains her to this seat, comes out of nowhere, and like this sort of shipping container amasses around her, and that shipping container gets then encompassed in a space shuttle. And then like Persia is walking around a zoo and falls like down like this mysterious like bottomless pit, and gets taken to like the main base. By the time they got past Yumi, I think the Japanese government was running out of money because they just sent a guy on a bicycle to come and like grab her.
Having the little compact mirror on the street was going, come along.
They said, please help us. We're desperate for somebody to save the world from this evil alien thing. They're like, oh great, we might help you. Okay. But we don't have any magical powers anymore. Like, oh right, we'll just boot them out. But then they get, because it didn't have subtitles, I don't exactly know why, but some magical force comes down from the moon. I actually think it might be the evil alien going, I accept your challenge, or something like that. Or it could be some good alien that's counterforcing. It's difficult to tell when you have got subtitles. And gives them their magical powers back. So the first three transform into older versions of themselves, but Chloe, like, passing Yumi, there's like, I'm still like 12. Like, help! But what she does is just like, she gives them more power armor. And they fight this alien thing, and it only, like many OVAs in the 80s, only lasts about 30 minutes. And it's silly, but it's got a plot to it. And a later example, now this first showed up as an OVA in 1988, but there was a readaptation in 1998. Well, it's out of the 80s itself, but it's a Studio Pierrot example, and it did first start in the 80s. Initially a Cinderella story in the OVA, where a little girl was like mistreated, and then some fairies take sympathy on her, and she transforms into an older version of herself to win a like fashion contest, and she wins it with her own designs that she's been drawing throughout the episode because they grant her the designs. Whereas the adaptation basically took the pastel Yumi concept of drawing things and it comes to life, and the creamy mummy concept, and put them together. One thing I really like about Creamy Mummy is the animation style's a lot better because it's 1998, not the 1980s. And I really like the transformation sequence in particular because first she draws the outfit she wants to wear, which is really too big on her. And then she uses her magic power, and the little pen has like a clock that comes out of it and winds forward, and when she gets older, I'm like, oh, I like the little clock element, and it looks quite pretty. Right, the 1990s. The 1990s. Warrior Girls in the Anglosphere, I've called this, because the 1990s first really saw the magical warrior, though it had been touched on briefly in that one OVA, and there had been action-based scenes for some magical girls, and Cutie Honey was like the real first example. This was when it really went popular with the conception of Sailor Moon, where it was the first proper Sentai series, not just a one-off OVA that sort of had a nod to Powder and Sentai. And it is when we first started to get them in the English-speaking world, more or less. I think that there had been earlier examples of Minky Momo's movie being dubbed by Harmony Gold, but sorry. It's when it got popular in the West. Well, the English-speaking West, as I said. Right, Sailor Moon, pretty told Sailor Moon. I've put here the one everyone knows. I mean, maybe not everyone, but the one that I will make no doubt it's my favourite anime series. It's the anime series that introduced me with anime, and I realised there were better examples of magical girls later on. I actually think Cardcaptor Sakura is better than Sailor Moon, but I like Sailor Moon more because it's my nostalgia. Basically, I think most people know the plot of this, but I'll go over it for the people who don't. Sally, that's her with the crazy hairdo. Very popular.
You say that when we've got Chibiusa, who's got pink hair.
True, she's her daughter, so it's just extrapolated. Okay. The one with the blonde with the crazy hairdo, I should say. And then you've got Princess Kagi on the back, and we've got some thing on there. Anyway, basically, she's a crybaby, she's clumsy. This is a very popular concept of making the protagonist of the series absolutely flipping useless, anything in the real world. The song was based on a mangaka herself, except made stupider, because Naoko Takayuki was a pharmacologist, but she hated English, so she just took out all of her own science knowledge, and what she realised is she was left with a moron. Because Naoko Takayuki is very clever with mineralogy and pharmacology, but once she removed her science knowledge, she was perhaps her historical knowledge as well, because she's good with that. She was left with somebody who was kind of dippy because she was really, really bad English and stuff. And we've got she's approached by this talking cat who she rescues one day. That's Luna over here. And told that she is the destined protector of the princess of the moon and must collect the other protectors from different planets and meet up with them to one day search for the moon princess, and they don't know who it is, and it could be anybody on the planet, and who will the moon princesses be? She's called Sailor Moon. I wonder who the moon princess is. Anyway, if you actually watch the first off, the English version ruins that from the offset, because they take some important scenes from a late episode and just plonk them in the first episode.
Long ago, I'm going to spoil everything in the program.
But even the Japanese version does about a third of the way through, goes, we've got a new animation sequence for the opening sequence, and it's got Sailor Moon transforming directly into the Moon Princess about 5 episodes before she actually does.
Doesn't really help that really iconic hairdo. You have all those sequences with Mamoru having his I've got to save this princess thing, and who do I know who has meatball hair?
Yeah, I know. It was fairly obvious to be quite fair, but it just wasn't to them. I think, but like in series like Blinkedness, you get this in a lot of shows.
Yeah, there's like this meta sort of theory that the magic sort of makes them look a bit different.
Yeah, that's why she's running around with such iconic hair and nobody recognises it. The manga at least makes good sense because nobody really gets a direct look at Sailor Moon who looks like. But in the anime, she's just wandering around frequently and it's being like filmed and stuff. And you'd think a parent would figure out. I love the parody example from Pretty Sammy, which was Tenchi Kaien, where basically she's like goes throughout the entire series where she's like, right, I'm a magical girl and I'm fighting, but I don't really look any different. I've just got a couple of extra bobbles in my hair, and nobody notices that I'm a magical girl. But then it turns out her entire class knew. They just too polite to mention it. Well, we didn't want to like ruin your phone. We just didn't want to ruin your phone. It was instrumental because it was the first one that really bigly hit popular in the West, although it didn't do that well in America initially because they showed it at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was really popular in Canada, and it was Canadian toy tie-in that got the series continued, not Pop-Tarts, and that's there was a Bring Back Sailor Moon campaign who tried to get people to like buy a load of Pop-Tarts. Try and prove that because that Pop-Tarts were advertised during Sailor Moon, it had like buying power and the fans were no, it was really a toy tie-in that got it. In Japan, it was the first proper Sentai like 5-man troupe. Magical girl team. There had been teams before, like I talked about, but they weren't like it wasn't a core plot line of them. And it repopularised the magical warrior style magical girl because that had gone out of vogue in the 80s. It was only really touched upon by Cutie Honey anyway. Basically, one gets the feeling that both Naoko Takeuchi and the creator and the animation staff were huge Cutie Honey fans because there's a lot of references. Her power to transform into, to use that pen to become different, but it basically just a massive nod to Cutie Honey anyway. Right, first started with the codename Sailor Bay manga, which you can get in English at the moment. Same with the Sailor Moon manga. Kodansha's bringing out them one by one. And the anime series are harder to acquire because they've gone out of print and they're very expensive to find online.
Yeah, Reborn wants Funimation to license it.
Yes, everybody does. There might be some hope on the horizon though, because basically, over there, 20th anniversary Sailor Moon is coming out next year. And hopefully that should reinvigorate interest. I'm almost certain that one will get some format of release, even if it's only a Crunchyroll thing. But being Sailor Moon, I imagine it will probably get a bigger release than that.
What was the animation studio that did Sailor Moon? Was it Pure?
It was Toei again.
Oh, that would be why. Then Toei's evil when it comes to licensing anything from that far back.
I know. They never let. There was 5 seasons, some tie-in movies which I haven't put up there just for. Sailor Stars has never been released in the West because of these 3 characters who are men in a civilian form, but that's just a disguise because they're really women. They turn back into women to fight things, but not in the manga. In the manga, they're just cross-dressed. I mean, they weren't guys who like I'm fighting in a bikini. No, they cross-dressed as they were girls who like cross-dressed and formed a boy band. So basically, next time you say like One Direction look really girly, or Justin Bieber looks really girly, maybe that's why. Horrifying, I thought it was Justin Bieber running around in a leather bikini like
Thank you for that image.
I'd break into the brain. Also, the live action show in 2003 and the musicals, which ran in 2005. I can sit through. I can sit through Wedding Peach. The one everyone seems to hate, but not me. I've read the manga. I haven't actually seen that much of the series, but I have read the entire like mainline manga. And yes, it's twee, and yes, it's silly, and yes, it's very much like Sailor Moon. I mean, to the point of people say it's a Sailor Moon rip-off, and I'd say, no, most magical girl series have got their own thing, not everything's just Sailor Moon. But it was basically, this was hanging on the coattails of Sailor Moon's popularity. I mean, if you watch the animation sequences, they start off almost exactly like Sailor Moon's does, except that these magical girls need to absorb love energy before they can fight, so they transform into wedding dresses. They go into a wedding dress and hang about for like 5 seconds to absorb some love energy, and then go into, they do like a dress change thing, which is a reference to Japanese marriage ceremonies, where halfway through the ceremony you will change from one dress to like a more lighter, accessible evening dress. It's still very pretty, but isn't blinking heavy. A lot of girls use this as an excuse to get away with having a white wedding that they want, and the traditional wedding that the husband's family want. Basically, they are. It's vaguely based on Romeo and Juliet. Basically, there's angels. The love angels are fighting the devils, and the devils will eradicate all of the love in the world because they're devils. No the real reason given, except in the anime where apparently it turns out Queen Rain the Villa, who looks a heck of a lot like Queen Beryl, actually was like jilted when she was, or something when she was younger. That's why she hates all love. This was basically, it was sort of developed by Sukihiro Tomita, who had worked on Sailor Moon. It was basically him and Naoya Yazawa, who is a female mangaka, which is mostly known for taking on a male pseudonym and drawing shonen, which is why when you read it, it's got a lot of shonen, like, it's got sparkly eyes things, but it's got a lot of shonen sort of things. It's got like this soft, pudgy look to it as well. It's a little bit like Rumiko Takahashi's sort of art style, but with bigger eyes, because it was like, I really quite like the manga because it's sweet and it has, and they do have like a tuxedo mask type character called Limone, but it doesn't end up with the main girl. It ends up with somebody else, and the main girl, like I said, is based on to an extent Romeo and Juliet, so she ends up with like one of the devils. But it's a fun, cute little thing. But a lot of people, like, it was the first thing they encountered after Sailor Moon, and they're like, oh, this is a rip-off of my favourite show. Oh, the Sakura. Yay! The other one, everyone else. The other one everyone knows, and the one, as I said, I would argue is actually better than Sailor Moon. And if you want to go for a really good example of magical concept done really well, go for Cardcaptor Sakura, because Clamp and Clamp are fantastic. A bit obsessed with lesbianism and stuff, but
especially with like really weird ones like Cousins and Tomoyo and
Sakura are second cousins, and their mothers, the mothers were cousins, and Tomoyo's mom had a crush on her cousin.
We're going back to Sailor Moon again.
Oh well, yeah. The reference to Sailor Moon there is basically in the dub. They cut out the concept of two of the Sailor Senshi, that's it's Uranus and Neptune, it's Haruka and Mitsuru, being lesbians, almost definitely lesbians. They even made like implicit comments that they are actually having, doing the deed. Whereas in the dub they made them cousins, but they didn't change any of the character interactions. they just changed the cousins, and yet they still give each other like longing like looks and like hold each other's hands lovingly and stuff. And you're like, fact, I'm going to show you an example of dubbing in Sailor Moon and why it was so silly. Here we go.
Oh, I think I've seen this one.
Yeah.
This isn't ducks, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, Robert, it's beautiful here. I just hope it doesn't rain, because this is all so perfect. You want to go for a carriage ride after dinner? You're mine!
There you are. I want you to do exactly what I say, hear me? Get that guy Darian, that's an order.
Always imagine Jeremy. This could arguably be said to be a early 2000s example, but it did technically start in 1999. And to just try and surmise this quickly, Dorothy Haruka, the one with the bobblies on her hair in pink, really likes witches. She would really like being a witch. She's been possibly reading Roald Dahl, because if you watch the episode, she lists off the same list of categorizations of how you can tell a witch is a witch that Roald Dahl uses in the witches. So I was like, what? And she's bopping along one day and she finds this shop that wasn't this mysterious shop. And she goes in and there's this old woman. And because she knows so much about witches, I mean, she's not a very good student, but she knows a lot about witches. She goes in and says, "You're a witch." And in this world, if you unveil somebody as a witch, they turn into a frog. Not the person, the witch turns into a frog. And she says, it's like, crap, you've done that to me. Now you're going to have to undo it. And Dorothy's like, oh, so you're going to make me a witch? And she says, yes. And she thinks like, oh, great, I'm going to be able to fix all my problems. No. You have to go through the witch world. Actually has a fairly rigorous, though interestingly changing of outfits every season. Like series of tests and standards to become a witch. And so she and her friends, over each series you might notice she picks up another girl.
You've got blue, you're in. You can't have two blues.
Basically, the purple one used to be not really evil, because it's not that sort of series, but she used to be quite selfish and using magic for selfish reasons. This one is the one, this yellow one was actually from Witch World herself and more proficient, and she was there to help and study. And this white one was a baby up until that series, and basically she said they've been looking after her as her troop of 12-year-old mums. And they found her, and they took her back to the human world and had to look after her, because they found she sort of was birthed from some sort of magical flower thing, I think, in the or something similar in the witch world. And she got bored of being the baby and transformed herself into a 12-year-old so she could go to school and find all of her 12-year-old mothers. That's a popular series in Japan, and it had a big impact on the way things were produced, which I'll show you in a moment, in the 2000s. These are today's magical girls, and as you can see from from Pretty Cure, franchises. Basically, a lot of them today's magical girls are quite similar to the 90s magical girls, but in terms of production, they're very marketed, and it's sort of like 90s meet the 80s. The 90s magical girl warriors, but the 80s marketing, and just we'll churn out all of these and get girls to buy things. Nothing that doesn't produce good stuff, because I really like the first season of Pretty Cure. You could watch it dubbed halfway decently. When I say halfway decently, they got the Sailor Moon treatment of changing everyone's names, but they didn't change the plot around too much. They did stupid things like change takoyaki to like donuts and stuff, but they didn't fudge with the plot too much, unlike they did with Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor Sakura. Cardcaptor Sakura, you received a terrible dub, where where basically they snipped out in America anyway, they've snipped out the first 8 episodes and tried to make her like male love interest, the lead. Didn't really work. Princess Tutu was a good example of the more thinky example, and this was sort of made by a production team, arguably definitely aimed at girls because it's very feminine and very girly, but it was always intended to be like a bit like psychological and probably aimed at a somewhat older woman market and like later teens, even though it will be popular with little girls. Probably still a little girl show, but they had a lot of intention of putting like.
It got free and dark.
It got on. Yeah, basically. Long ago, there were in this gold crown town there was a writer called Drosselmeyer who wrote a story of a prince and a raven fighting each other, and then the prince had to shatter his own heart into shards to seal the raven away. And Ahiro, or Duck in the dub, because she's not just named Duck, she, as I mentioned, she actually is a duck, but she didn't realise it. She's been given a human form explicitly to help out this prince who's stuck with all these memories lost on the campus of her ballet school. And she's not a very good ballerina until she transforms into Princess Tutu, in which she can actually connect with people's hearts and draw out the shards that have been scattered across the campus and across the town. Other people have picked up like his negative emotions and embedded them in her, and she just needs to remove them and return them to him. She actually is in love with him, but it transpires that she's got no chance of ever being with him because she's a duck. And it's straight up told in the first episode that she'll never find his love, and she goes off and sort of starts to cry, and then when she gets overcome, she turns back into her duck self and goes like, that sounds like, but it's actually really sad. You're like, oh.
Is it like she also in the thing she told, if she ever actually tells him that she loves him, she'll disappear?
Yes, I think that's it. It's like if she tells him that she loves him, she'll disappear. She'll like, the local town's really interesting actually because it's based on a town in Bavaria, and it's very German-based. This series, a lot of German influences because, well, it's ballet and it's like Russia. It was just like the Russia and East Germany aspect. It's like very like sort of influenced by the whole look. And there's like just random talking animals that wander around the town and nobody notices. So it doesn't really take place on Earth. And they've got this cat that teaches and threatens to marry them if they ever take them off. There we go, Pretty Cure. Starting in 2004, Katari about Pretty Cure. And often it's simply called Pre-Cure. This show has become the primary magical world warrior type of magical girl in this series and anime scene. It was initially followed up by a sequel series in 2005, but it was later cemented as a sort of Power Rangers type Super Sentai franchise, with them all changing every so often, and like new sets of magic girls. But they do, as you can see there, have some team-up movies, and that's all of them. And I'll just go past that because we're starting to run short on time. Sugar Shara can get it on Crunchyroll. Definite recommendation for me because I was put off by the concept. So one day this girl wakes up and she's laid three eggs. What they actually are her potential selves. She wishes she could be a different person because the whole school's got this misconception about being like icy, cool, and that's just really shy. And she has to fight some bad guys from the Easter Corporation, and she does it. Everything's to do with eggs because everybody in this world has got an egg in their heart. And their would-be selves, there's a child that the career they want to be or the person they're aspiring to be like is inside their hearts and could potentially hatch. And the Easter corporations going around and drawing out their dreams and destroying them because they're looking for this one particular one. It's called an embryo, which is like a super powerful wish-granting heart egg. And Amu, at first she's just, we've got these little characters who follow her around, but then at the end of the first episode, or slightly later on in the manga, she gets the power to transform into Amulet Heart, and then later to Amulet Spain and Amulet Cove, much later on she gets another transformation and another character. But she's fighting against, as I said, Easter, and they're fighting over these heart's eggs, and her transformation trick is called the Humpty Lock. Oh yeah, and the bad guys have got another one called the Dumpty Key. It's a really good series, but the name, I was like, sitting there giggling at the stupid names.
Frankly, most series that, I mean, let's say they get with DBZ, half of them just food, like, I'm hungry watching.
Oh, cool, like, I'm just going to skip over this one. This is some outside examples that are aimed at parodies or like
Jungle Day,
yeah, I haven't got the clip for that because I wasn't sure I could get away with her transformation.
Yeah, that's...
It's like, what? Jungle Day Echo is, basically she turns into this massive gazombid magical girl and fights things, and she has this really questionable, she dances about.
Yeah.
And then she, basically, she's only 12 as well, she makes this rather orgasmic sound, for want of a better way of putting it, and transforms into this older version of herself, and you're like, I'm not sure I should be watching this. But these are some parody examples, and some parodies. Moldav is its own good show in its own right, really. It's a parody of the magical girl, but more really a parody of superheroes. But definitely, basically, inventor creates this superhero sort of suit, sort of thing that you can transform into using like dimensional physics or something. And his sister shows up and screws with it and makes herself like a magical girl, but sort of looking version of it. And they never know which version they're going to get. So sometimes she's stuck in a male body and he's stuck in like a female body. And they're like, oh! Dana Hotoje, or Magical Witch Puni-chan as it was released in America. You get the DVDs and import them if you've got a suitable DVD player. It might even be over here. Puni Takahara is the magical princess of the magical land, a kingdom in the sky. She's sent to Earth to train as a queen for a year. Yada yada tradition. Except she's evil. And she uses wrestling submission moves on people when she runs out of magic. And she, her magical spell is lyrical Tuggerev. Kill them all! Which is like, Tuggerev is a type of Russian gun, by the way. Oh, I thought you can all pig girl Ponderbering.
This was actually out in English.
This was, yes, it was in. I'm going to show you the transformation sequence for this.
I remember this.
Dubbed in, I think, the Philippines. Oh, that's nothing. She's a pig! I think that's a calisthenics thing. I'm not really sure what that's Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Basically, that's just playing Magical Girl series, except she turns into a pig. Instead of like a super powerful magical warrior. And she wants to be a super powerful magical warrior girl, but she can't because she needs to collect 108 pearls, because it's pearls before swine, and then she become more. Non-anime examples. She-Ra, which, if I've got enough time, I'll show you. Because I don't need to summarise it, because it does it for you. Because it's like, it's the same people who made He-Man, so he does it as well in his series. compared to some people. She just stands there. It's pretty, but she just... Also this. Oh my god, this is so painful!
You see, the actors on shows done particularly parody of the He-Man and I'm a protector of the universe.
Yeah, pretty much stand up for girls, except the only real big difference I would say, other than the fact that she's a girl, is the fact that He-Man fights Skeletor, but Skeletor is just like making attempts on the throne. Hordak already runs the place where she is, and she's part of the Great Rebellion. As also it turns out Hordak is like Skeletor's teacher, which is a bit embarrassing because Hordak's just as useless as Skeletor. Though it sets out where the precedent came from. Jem is an example from 1985. She is, unlike the Japanese magical girl, she didn't turn any older, but she did acquire a hologram from a deceased, making computer from a deceased father that gives her massive pink hair and makeup, and she uses it to become a pop heroine and form a band to fight off the evil band, the Misfits, who really are quite evil. That sounds like, oh, an evil band. No, they make several attempts on people's lives and stuff. Nobody actually charges them with anything. Princess Guinevere or Starla and the Jewel Riders, based on our theory of myth, but with magical girl elements. Fortunately, I'm running short of time. Which was an Italian comic, was later animated by Disney in a sort of Italy, France, USA co-production. Pretty good series, actually. I would say I would recommend it. I've seen the first part of it, and I've read several of the comics. They can be a little bit tricky to get in English comics, and they get the powers of earth, air, earth, fire, water, and quintessence, which is a.
No, I've already done Captain Planet stuff yesterday.
Quintessence is electricity, and she's a technopath. She can talk to, like, I mean, literally talk. In the comics, she talks an alarm system into switching itself off. And it has a conversation with it. Wings Club, which was done by 4 kids, was an Italian, as you can imagine, it's 4 kids. Though they don't think they did change things around in Wings Club, but they didn't get as bad a treatment as some anime gets, because the original One Piece, but the original stuff was fairly light touch. They just changed some names around. They did remove some of the peril because it's 4 kids, but it got that 4 kids treatment of giving everybody really distinctive, mildly irritating voices. No offense to the voice actors, because it's not them, it's the voice direction. It's really weird.
I know. There are some really good actual actors. They were like, we could do better than this.
Penny Creon, now I'm probably Penny Creon is probably stretching it, but I just want to. And it's probably stretching an example, but I'm just giving you an example of something like She-Ra and Gem and the Holograms. So it's probably not directly influenced, but could fall under the terms. 1990, I think, 12 episodes, voiced by Sue Pollard, and you can tell it's Sue Pollard from High High. And she gets some magic. She's got some magical. They never explains where it comes from, either because it's British kids, so it's just shit happens. And
You don't ask.
And she just has the ability to like past the game, bring stuff to life with her magical pens. Except with her, she has a tendency to make things that have a tendency to go awry, like snakes and crocodiles and elephants and stuff. Examples aimed at older audiences. Sure. Nanoha was took the idea that guys like magical girls just as much as girls do and really ran with it. And a lot of it's based on a lot of nods to Gundam in there. Basically a very action-based series, and it gives a magical girl with confidence. She doesn't hate a job like a lot of magical girls do. Fuera Magica Mandioca Magica, just a recent series, very dark. Very dark. I I haven't actually gotten around to seeing it yet because I want to get it on DVD. But I'm trying to avoid spoilers. All I know is don't trust QB, character death, and don't trust QB. And lingerie essentially Papillon laws, originally for internet like video, very brief clips which were just ripped from Sailor Moon, and then made into an OVA which was like looks like Shin, cute, only very like naughty, where she has to fight an evil dominatrix elf, and her magical girl phrase includes the word erection. And tamer but still fan servicey TV show came out later on with a wider class, and they all fight a group of STD spreading transvestites.
Please tell me one of them is voiced by Tim Curry.
Unfortunately, if it ever gets properly, I really hope it gets. And finally, it's got nothing on it. Sorry about that. I'll fix that. When it goes up online, that'll probably just have my references on it. Wound up, I think that's it. I didn't get to show you all my clips, but I didn't think I would. I'll show you one more parody example as we haven't been called on it. This is from Megas XLR, the Ultra Chicks, so just one episode. Do we? 10:30, it's 10:30. I'll pause that. I'm pretty certain it was 10:30.
The schedule says 10:30.
I've had some buffers on just in case.
Right.
No, the schedule says 11.
I've got
That's 11.
10 here. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Until I get called on, I'll show you the rest of my clips. I love this. This is really legitimately just a piss take, but I don't mind having a piss take.
It's one of those cases where it's a mistake, but it's just too true not to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, I wonder if that one
So the video wasn't stuck before you asked it. That episode is also parodiable, remember, because it turns out they can turn into giant robots. But they come and need Megas XLR to defeat this like evil thing, and as typical Megas XLR fashion, Coop screws it up and their home world gets destroyed. But one of them at least saw Kim, because she dates the mechanic guy at the end. So okay. And I'll show you this. This is why I love Sailor Moon as well, because it's not above taking the piss out of itself. I love this clip. I love this clip. That's a serious attack, but I can't fault the anime for making it stupid. And I'll show you. Does anybody like? Look, we're at a convention, so you're used to the concept of crossplay, right?
Oh,
right? In fact, the other thing that's really funny about is how cheaply this has been done.
Oh, so disappointing.
Look over the truck.